My dear friends, this is the fourth and the last part of the lesson on saying please. This part contains paragraph number 9, 10 and 11. What struck me particularly was the ease with which he got through his work. The conductor was very comfortable in his work and it struck the writer very much. Writer was very influenced by his way of working. If bad manners are infectious, so also are good manners. According to the writer, if bad manners are infectious, good manners are also infectious like bad manners. If we encounter incivility, most of us are apt to become uncivil. But it is an unusually uncouth person who can be disagreeable with sunny people. If we encounter, means if we meet incivility means rudeness, impoliteness, we are likely to become uncivil. And only an uncouth person means impolite person, can never be agreeable with sunny people. Only an uncouth person can never be agreeable with sunny or happy or pleasant people. It is with manners as with the weather. Nothing clears up my spirits like a fine day, said Keats. And a cheerful person descends on even the gloomiest of us with something of the benediction of a fine day. Here, the writer gives us the example of John Keats, a famous poet, once said, "Nothing clears up my spirits like a fine day." Spirits means mood. And this cheerful person, John Keats, descends, means comes down on the gloomiest person like the benediction. Benediction means blessing of a fine day. That means a cheerful fellow affects our mood like a fine day. And so it was always fine weather on the polite conductor's bus. So there was always a fine weather. There was always a pleasant atmosphere on the polite conductor's bus. And his own civility, his conciliatory address, and good humored bearing infected his passengers. The qualities that infected his passengers are his civility, conciliatory address. Conciliatory means trying to win friendly feelings, and good humored bearing. Everything infected his passengers. In lightening their spirits, he lightened his own task. Writer here says that he lightened the spirits of the passengers. He brightened the spirits of his passengers. That means he brightened the moods of his passengers, and also he lightened his own task. That means he brightened his own task also. His gaiety was not a wasteful luxury, but a sound investment. His gaiety, that means his cheerfulness, his happiness, was not a wasteful luxury. Luxury means comfort. It was not a wasteful comfort, but it was a sound investment. I have missed him from my bus route of late, but I hope that only means that he has carried his sunshine on to another road. The writer has missed him from his bus route and he is working on another road, making the atmosphere pleasant by his good behavior on another road. It cannot be too widely diffused in a rather drab world. That road cannot be too widely diffused. Widely diffused means spread in many directions in this drab world. Drab world means colorless, dull, uninteresting world. And I make no apologies for writing a panegyric on an unknown bus conductor. The writer wrote about the conductor. He wanted to praise him, so he makes no apologies. That means he doesn't feel sorry for writing a panegyric on that unknown bus conductor, because he took the valuable lessons from him. He was inspired by the behavior of that bus conductor. If Wordsworth could gather lessons of wisdom from the poor leech gatherer on the lonely moor, see here the writer gives us the example of famous poet Wordsworth, who could gather lessons of wisdom from the poor leech gatherer. Lessons of wisdom. Wisdom means knowledge gained from experience. Poor leech gatherer. Leech gatherer means a person who collects leech, a type of worm that lives in wet places, which is useful in medical treatment so that it sucks blood from the patient's body. Now see the reference of the poor leech gatherer is the subject of Wordsworth's poem Resolution and Independence, or the leech gatherer. See the word moor. Moor means open grassland on high altitudes. I see no reason why lesser people could not take lessons in conduct from one who shows how a very modest calling may be dignified by good temper and kindly feeling. As Wordsworth could get lessons from a poor person, as Wordsworth could get inspirations from a poor person's, why can't we take lessons from small people like the polite conductor? From the person who shows how a very modest calling, modest means very simple, not great, may be dignified by good temper and kindly feeling. See the word dignified. Dignified means noble or respectable or reputable. It is a matter of general agreement that the war has had chilling effect upon those little everyday civilities of behavior that sweeten the general air. The war has had a chilling, that means discouraging effect upon those little civilities of behavior. War has destroyed our everyday civilities from our life. We must get those civilities back if we are to make life kindly and tolerable for each other. So if we want to make our life kindly and tolerable for each other, if we want to make our life pleasant, we must get back those civilities, politeness, courtesies. We cannot get them back by invoking the law. We cannot get those civilities back with the help of the law or by requesting the law. The policeman is a necessary symbol and the law is a necessary institution for a society that is still somewhat lower than the angels. The policeman a necessary symbol and the law a necessary institution for society. We know this, the importance of police and the importance of law in our society. But which society which is lower than the angels? Lower than the angels means less than perfect. According to writer, the policeman and the law are necessary things for the society. That society is less than perfect. That means our behavior is not same like the angels. We can't compare ourselves to the angels because our society is less than perfect. Our society is not 100% perfect. But the law can only protect us against material attack. Material attack means physical attack. The law can only protect us against material attack, nor will the liftman's way of meeting moral affront by physical violence help us to restore the civilities. As there is no law against the bad manners, The liftman's way of meeting moral affront, moral affront means insult or disrespect by physical violence, will not help us to restore the civilities. That will not help us to re-establish the civilities. I suggest to him that he would have had a more subtle and effective revenge. The writer here wants to suggest the liftman a subtle and effective revenge. That means the liftman's violent attack on passenger will not help us to gain or achieve civilities or courtesy. Here the writer suggests the liftman that if he had treated the passenger, see, I am reading, if he had treated the gentleman who would not say please with elaborate politeness, if he had treated the passenger with elaborate politeness, he would have had more subtle and effective revenge. He would have had the victory not only over the boor but over himself, and that is the victory that counts. And then he would have got the victory over the boor, means over the rude passenger who did not say please, as well as he would have got the victory over himself. And according to writer, this type of victory is very important in person's life. The polite man may lose the material advantage, but he always has the spiritual victory. According to writer, spiritual victory is more important than material advantage. The polite man may lose the material advantage, but he always has the spiritual victory. Here, the writer gives us an example of Chesterfield. See, I commend to the liftman a story of Chesterfield. Chesterfield, an English statesman, author, and patron of letters. In his time, the London streets were without the pavements of today, and the man who took the wall had the driest footings. In that time in London, the streets were without the pavements, that is, the streets were without the footpaths. So people had to walk on the wall. I never give the wall to a scoundrel, said the man who met Chesterfield one day in the street. Once Chesterfield came across a man on the wall while walking. The man was not ready to get down the wall, so he said, I never give the wall to a scoundrel. Here the man uses bad words for Chesterfield. He said him scoundrel. Scoundrel means dishonest person. Actually, that person insulted Chesterfield. But see how Chesterfield replied to him. I always do, said Chesterfield, stepping with a bow into the road. Chesterfield said, I always do. And he stepped down on the road. Here Chesterfield took revenge in a very polite manner. And see, I hope the liftman will agree that his revenge was much more sweet than if he had flung the fellow into the mud. Writer expected the same type of revenge from the liftman. The liftman could embarrass the passenger by being extra polite and witty, and in this way the liftman could have avoided the trouble. So here friends, this essay tells us about the value of good manners. Bad manners are antisocial, but they are not a crime in the eyes of law, and therefore the law does not permit us to hit back if we have been the victims of bad manners. People begin to avoid a man with bad manners. A person with good manners brings us happiness. His company is indeed very pleasant. This essay deals with little but socially important incidents from daily life. It shows us the importance of words like please and thank you in our everyday life. They settle bitter quarrels and soften bad tempers. Thank you, students.